You've heard astrologers say that 2024 is a repeat of 2020. And this is yet another example of the karma the year of the wood dragon has in store. Remember, we also have the South Node, our collective karmic patterns in Libra, karmic relationships. Venus retrograde is when matters of love, heart, or wallet go awry. This Venus retrograde in 2020, from 21.5 degrees Gemini to 5 degrees Gemini, activated my little Gemini party here. Vesta, Moon, Mars, in Gemini by exact conjunction to first my Mars and then my Moon. This was the time in my life when I experienced my very first job layoff, like many of you watching, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I had been working in the international travel industry for an American tour operating company, and guess what my territory was? Italy. Our entire department, aside from a handful of lesser cost employees, was laid off. At the time, instead of waiting it out, like perhaps a more patient non-Gemini person, I started applying to jobs as quickly as possible. As soon as that April and May. I'm sure you won't be surprised to hear that one of the only places hiring was the Army National Guard. And I became tempted by an ad recruiting people. Long story short, a part of me had always idealized serving my country, and I decided to give the testing a try. After landing a perfect score on the ASVAB, my recruiter recommended me for the FBI's D-Lab. The Defense Language Aptitude Battery is essentially a standardized government test. It was designed by the FBI. It takes approximately 2 hours, and it's used to assess a person's ability to naturally learn a language. And this is usually for armed service workers. So the D-Lab measures learning potential, not what is already learned, so it's hard to study for. So in the test, essentially, they give you a gibberish language and a set of rules to follow. The key is to study and memorize the grammatical rules and apply them to the gibberish language and do the best that you can through the test. This was literally perfect for Gemini, Vesta, Moon, and Mars. And at the time, they were recruiting people for linguistics roles, we'll just say. Although I don't know my score, I know that I scored high enough to choose between Russian or Arabic. I would take 3 trips to Fort Dix before setting a final swear-in date. But unfortunately, I would tear my hamstring while training for boot camp. So while I was bored at home nursing a partially torn hamstring in April, May 2020, with the world shut down due to COVID-19, I downloaded Bumble. It manifested what was initially supposed to be just a fun summer fling with a younger man. But this younger guy turned out to be my karmic twin flame, sent to prepare me to face my shadow and to continue the next half of my dark night of the soul / Saturn return, which hit me late 2017, early 2018, and lasted well into late 2022, maybe even early 2023. Rewind back to 2020, this was a time of COVID-19 lockdowns and pandemic mania, which made Venus retrograde and dating particularly challenging. We were swayed by lockdown loneliness. Some of us settled for less than we deserved out of a perceived lack of alternative options. Funny enough, I actually just crossed paths with mine not too long ago. He appeared one day, not too long ago, a couple months back, at my new place of employment, the day after I had told someone the story for the first time in a while. And more recently, just a few days ago, we crossed paths near where we live on the road, which isn't terribly synchronistic because we live within a mile of one another. I don't recommend doing that, by the way. Anyway, I can feel him coming. This time, it's on a motorcycle that revs by, vroom vroom, just as it's passing me in my bright blue convertible with the top down. And the music just loud enough so that you can't hear me singing. He wasn't wearing a helmet, which is surprising to me when his favorite excuse for shitty behavior and an inability to commit was his 8 or 9, couldn't quite get that straight, concussions from playing collegiate rugby, allegedly. And never apologized for intentionally using, degrading, and discarding me after 9 months of putting me through hot and cold, on again, off again, mental gymnastics. Anyway, the point of this mildly related anecdote about my twin, my karmic twin flame, is that sometimes people come into our lives simply to wake us up. They wake us up to our full potential by forcing us to find personal empowerment. Sometimes that's their only purpose. Rejections, delays, and obstacles are more often blessings in disguise. We need only shift our perspective as the universe redirects us. Whether it's a romantic or platonic connection, if a person cares about you and they're interested in you, they will reply to your text. If they see a future with you, they make plans in advance. They introduce you to their friends and their family. If they are keeping you a secret, they are very likely using you and or have some shame around you not being good enough. That is a them problem. If they are capable of feeling remorse, empathy, or even at the least guilt, and are sorry, they apologize. Allow their lack of apology to be all the validation you need to prove you were right in doubting their character in the first place. So we're still back setting the scene in 2020. Gyms were closing and reopening only to shut down again left and right, which is one of the most common ways young people meet. Many couples were suddenly forced to spend all of this time together, 24/7, often in tight quarters, magnifying incompatibilities. Venus retrograde through Gemini 2020 brought multiple can we talk regrounding moments in existing and budding relationships alike. Venus retrograde in Gemini, with Gemini being Mercury ruled, presents much like a Mercury retrograde. It's a great opportunity to deepen our existing relationships and bonds by listening actively and talking through misunderstandings and challenges that arise logically. Venus retrograde and South Node in Libra alike bring a resurgence of exes and former lovers, the arrival of a muse. In Gemini, this can indicate double trouble or a need to choose between two options. Global turmoil and lockdown loneliness reminded us of our own imminent mortality, which can be what drives many of us to seek forgiveness. 2020, this time, brought the added pressure of ex-flames resurfacing for reconciliation or rekindling, challenging existing connections.